when people say, "Oh, how do you define yourself?" and I sort of think if you're an artist of any kind, then I think my opinion is that really you're a storyteller. You're trying to tell stories, and it doesn't really matter what form or genre you use. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to connect with people, and you're trying to tell stories, and you're trying to say something. And I'm fascinated by you in that. I first knew of you as a fashion designer, and then you designed the costumes for a show I was in, and then I'm loving the fact that you're having these cabaret shows.
Yeah.
And it seems that you're going more into that direction of storytelling and now writing your memoir.
That's right. I'm going more in that direction.
Why do you think that is? Why you didn't feel comfortable enough to do it earlier? Or?
No, but I think there's another thing that people don't speak a lot about, which is that things get boring. They do, seriously. Yeah. I think people get bored, and it's like, I feel that you have to keep moving at all costs, Yeah. By the way, the show that we did was very good.
It
did not get...
Nobody liked it.
No one respected our show. It was a reimagining of Three Penny Opera with a brilliant translation by Wally
Shawn.
Absolutely
Fabulous.
Brilliant. And then a kind of rethinking by Scott, because he's so talented too, Scott Elliott, and they cast him as Mac the Knife, which is like not the first person you'd think of as Mac the Knife, but it was so brilliant.
And also...
because it was kind of like this multi-sexual, pansexual, like just everything,
And also Brecht is hard.
Brecht is very hard, and critics always think that they know better than every other artist, and especially in the case of Brecht, right? Like you cannot
Brecht
go near
basically
that.
says to the audience, "You are fucking shits for coming to the theatre."
Right,
and that doesn't go down well.
It's kind of like that fabulous girl who did that White House thing, the fabulous.
Oh, when they broke in, like they
no,
went.
No. The wonderful Michelle, somebody who did that wonderful White House speech where she was like, "Y'all made this happen."
The
what was her name? That great
woman, Wolf.
Michelle Wolf.
Dinner.
By the way, had she been a man, she would like own a TV network by now. Yeah, just saying. But because she was a woman, everybody came for her, right? Did you notice that?
No, absolutely.
But you're right about Brecht in that way.
That's what his theory of alienation is, that you have to shock the audience into kind of thinking, what's going on? Why am I here? I'm not really at the theatre. I'm watching something. I should be thinking more about the politics of this. And then they leave the theatre and do something about it. That's what his
It's
whole
called
ethos was.
agitprop, right? Agitprop.
Yeah.
You're supposed to agitate the audience, right?
And you alienate them. You alienate them to make them be more active in the world. And so, alas, it's interesting. I think since then on Broadway, there've been more things. When we did it, it was literally this season when Tarzan and The Little Mermaid were opening back to back. And I remember seeing people, I'd go out, sign autographs, and I'd say, you're here from Wisconsin for a week of theatre? Yes, what have you seen? Oh, last night we saw Tarzan. I was like,
and then we saw this
tomorrow morning you see The Little Mermaid, and I seen this fucked up sort of thing.
Fucked up thing of Three Penny Opera with Cyndi Lauper singing Solomon's Song, which, by the way, was amazing, by the way. That was amazing.
She was fabulous.
She was so great.
And also, the other thing that I told this story in my last cabaret show was that the costumes were so great, but I wore as Mac the Knife the tightest
Sorry
pants
about that, but
I've ever worn in my
It was on a checklist, like Alan's basket, I would check off. I would go into like Cindy's tits, right? I would go through like all the genitalia that I wanted to come.
And there was such that stretchy material, so it was actually all right. It felt nice, but they were like super tight. To the point that this
sorry, but
please. This critic in one of the reviews said that it said Alan Cumming looks as though he has a tea set down his pants. And I said, I want to have tea where he has tea.
Oh, exactly right.
And it was just the craziest thing. I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. And also it was. I love the fact that is that really what you were looking at when I was talking about things I was talking about?
Mac the Knife, that's kind of what you're
thinking
about.
Sexy,
He has to be, you have to hear the balls clanging as he walks on stage.
Totally.
You have to hear the tune, you have to smell it. Exactly.
Yeah, no, you've got to. But anyway, thank you, because that was, that's quite a thing to admire. That
That a critic would
actually
say,
thought I had a tea set down my. But I just also thinking, like, does he mean the teapot and the kind of the thing with the salt and pepper? And I don't know. Anyway, moving on from my penis.
But moving on from your cock. But yeah, I mean, well, I am doing these shows, and it's funny because I did a residence. I've been doing them for years. You know, I've been working at Joe's Pub.
I remember. Didn't you do one? What was the place downtown? That were called Les Miserables.
Oh yeah, that was my one-man show.
Was that singing
Mizrahi.
too? Yeah, Les Miserables.
I was singing with my band. I've been working with the same band since then.
That was what
It was in the early. It was in 2000, 2000. I remember that was one of the lyrics to one of the songs, 2000.
And where was that though? It was downtown somewhere.
It was at the Greenwich House, which is now called, I don't know. It's called a different thing, but it's the same little theater, and I loved it. But you know, I was doing it for years and years, and at different clubs, because I grew up at Performing Arts High School, so we always did
you went
this.
to the yeshiva school,
I went to yeshiva,
and then you went to
high school,
Performing Arts High School, like the Fame
which was
one.
like a whole culture shock. Yeah, I was in Fame.
Well, anyway, the movie Fame or the television
show? The movie, the actual
really,
movie. Yes, I am. I have a credit, actually, like the last screen credit of the whole thing.
And because you were studying there when they were shooting it?
Yes, I was. And Alan Parker, I remember going to read for one of the parts, and it was like, you know, Montgomery is like thin, redheaded, and something, and I was like, well, that's none for three. You know, I don't know if I'm going to get this, right? But I did get a little bit part, and I was in a lot of the extra scenes. It was the year we graduated. That was the year they shot it. And anyway, so I've been doing that since.
So I'm just curious though, like you left Jewish school in Brooklyn and went to high school there.
Performing Arts,
was it like a high school? You went, what age did you go?
Yeah, it was on 46th Street. I started going when I was, I guess, 12 and a half, 13 years old.
And with a view to becoming an actor?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't exactly know. I was supposed to go to the music department, but then I changed paths because I didn't get accepted to the music department. I got accepted to the acting department, which was shocking to my
what would you have studied? What would you be your specialty?
Piano.
Piano. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so...
and then so you graduated from there, and then you went to Parsons.
Yeah.
So you decided by the time you'd finished, you decided fashion was more your thing.
Well, being in that family, you know, the only way out was to kind of get out, right, and to be able to sort of support myself. So I thought it was just easier and more lucrative, a better idea in terms of a life to be in fashion, which I didn't understand. I mean, fashion is so much more cutthroat and horrible than show business could ever possibly be. But I didn't think that. I thought, it's so much easier to just be a fashion designer and, you know, work and make clothes and sell clothes, which is a crazy thought to have. But
isn't it interesting that as you've got older, you're bringing your performance thing more to the fore?
Yes, because I'm not bored, for one thing, you know.
What, performing?
With performing. I'm not bored with fashion either, but it has changed a great deal. It has changed a great deal.
In what way?
It's not as good. You know, it's just not as good. Because I feel like it's become so micro focused. Like, it's not so much fashion anymore as much as it looks to me like fetish, you know? Which isn't bad, but it's not what I think is sort of like interesting about clothes.
I don't quite understand what you mean. Like, the clothes aren't all fetishy.
It's about style. It's about styling things and about like sort of exaggerating, which sometimes it can be, and that can be good, but it just has become like a sort of as opposed to artistic, you know, making things that are from scratch that you think are relevant and were relevant. You know, it's a young person's game, I think. The minute you reach a certain age, you become like this kind of elder statesman, and it's kind of boring.
Right.
You know, it's about taste suddenly, and you've become like this.
You can't be an enfant terrible.
That's right. Well, who wants to be an enfant terrible, you know, right?
I think it's quite
you just
fun
want to be
while.
relevant. You want to be, yeah. Well, actually, I like that you, darling, have become like a sort of a club owner. You have a club called Club Cumming.
Club Cumming. I have a bar in New York City called
So
Club
exactly.
Cumming, yeah.
So he's sort of doing the opposite. Soon he's going to be doing like a whole collection for QVC and licensing.
We do have a range of Club Cumming products: glasses,
I'm sure
trays,
you do.
mugs,
I know you do.
T-shirts. Yeah. There's one thing I did sort of randomly, but it's about fashion. I'm really intrigued though that you feel that. I understand why it can be a young person's game, and I understand the idea that the older you get, like I get, you know, veteran actor and things like that. You think, and I always think of a veteran like a Vietnam veteran, like you've got you've been through a war and you're still, you know, I don't quite think being a veteran actor is quite as traumatic as that, but the notion that when you become more established and successful, people want you to do the same thing all the time, perhaps.
Yeah, and in fashion, it's different than it is as an actor, because I don't exactly know why. You know, like you still have Shakespeare, you still have everything. You know, I mean, it isn't. There's a million things that you are still open to an actor to do. You know, whereas like. It's kind of like, there was a fantastic article written by someone. It was probably one of those fashion writers who writes for the New Yorker, like Fraser, Kennedy Fraser, or Holly Bruback or something. Anyway, and she said that fashion was about, it really is, it's kind of like this success to scandale, you know? It's like, unless you can produce this kind of amazing froth of people going, oh my God, that was great, did you see? You know what I mean? Like nobody wants to, unless you do that.
So you've got to constantly be sensational.
It's like trying to do, you know, what is it called? Rite of Spring every single season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. You can't just do Giselle. You have to do like fucking Rite of Spring every damn time.
Yeah.
Or you're like, no, thank you, it's nice, and we'll maybe shoot it this year. Yeah.